Welcome back. My name is Levi. I work here at Jack Straw. One of my favorite parts of my job is managing our artist programs and getting to put together events like this and get some incredible artists in the same room. And now we're actually in the same actual room for the first time in a long time, and it feels really good. Some of these people I'm meeting for the first time today, we had Zoom meetings and many emails and phone calls and all kinds of things. So it's really a pleasure and a privilege to be here with this wonderful group of artists. Thanks to everybody for performing. Thanks to you for coming here in person. Thanks to you for coming on the internet. And if you're watching the Mariners game, I totally get it. You can come back later. But you're not seeing this. But if you did come back later, thank you for coming back later. So our next performer is Ebo Barton, who is just about to record an audiobook of their Washington Book Award finalist book, Insubordinate. So I'm really excited to see how that turns out, and you all are in for a treat. So without further ado, Ebo Barton.
Thank you so much. So the first thing I want to start out with a story, and then I'm going to introduce myself. So I do this convention about twice a year, and I have to perform in front of a bunch of college students, and they get to choose if they want to book me or not, right? And the first time I ever did it, the person before me was a hip hop violinist or something, and also did all these other electronic things. And then I had to do 5 minutes poetry after, and I was like, are you serious? I have to actually do that after this guy? And then the next year I had to follow a guy who is juggling chainsaws and do 5 minutes of spoken word after that. So I'm feeling a little bit like that. We started with the xylophones set up, and then all this amazing music, and then I'm going to do poems, so enjoy. So my name is Ebo Barton. I use they, them, or he, him pronouns. They, them might be new to you in terms of pronouns. So the way I teach folks is Ebo came to do the most amazing spoken word I've ever seen. They were very attractive. I really wanted to give them $20. So you all know how to use that again, right? Okay, great. So I'm going to do poems from my book Insubordinate that Levi just told you about. When I originally signed up, I was producing an audiobook, and what it's developed into is an audiobook that's now also going to go into a deluxe curriculum package for high school students ages from 9th grade to 12th grade. So it's very exciting that I'm putting all this media together. Yeah. So first, because I need to start out with a bang, because I just followed a bunch of amazing musicians, I'm going to do my poem inspired by Beyonce, because who's not inspired by Beyonce, right? Okay, great. When I came out to my mother, her first reaction was to comment on the volume of my voice when I said transgender, as if being myself in public wasn't already loud. I lowered my voice. Do you reach adulthood when your parents' reactions to your unblossoming start to sound hollow like an empty cage? When you look into a mirror and discover you are the only and ugliest salvation your family ever inherited? Do you reach full-grown adulthood when your reflection rejects you in your second language? The language you kept safe in your back pocket is an exhausted compass that only points towards the ocean. What about respect for my elders means mute myself? Are you still an adult if you just want to go home? I learned that being free isn't what everyone wants, especially if you find custody convenient. And I know that you think my gender makes you angry that your Jesus did not die for this, but the truth is, my gender binds you to fear, uncovers your discomfort from seeing the rapture of my reach, these bare wrists. What about my freedom scares you? I named myself Ebo to worship the slave rebellion that drowned their captors, rose into the sky, turned into birds, and flew back home. Why would you deny me this worship? Why would you keep this story trapped in a book? And don't mistake me for fearless. It's taken me a whole lifetime to get back home, but I'm still willing to come back for you if you want to come. Jaden Smith's skirt. Billy Porter's entire wardrobe. Lizzo's exposed thong. Monroe Bergdorf's middle finger. Zaya Wade. Harriet Tubman. My beard, my pronouns, my lips blossoming on a shoulder blade. We are the efflorescence of eternal emancipation. Come with us. Before I leave, tell my mother I've uninstalled the whisper in my authentic. If you don't want to untie the knots of shame, trying to convince you compromises the wind cradling my wings, so stay in bliss. But ask yourself, are you free? Or are you conditioned to this captivity? Whatever the answer is, please let me live. I just want to go home. Thank you. Cool. So awesome. And the next poem I'm going to do is about my father, who is not a good person at all. Just to keep that in mind. But I think that the lesson here is, what I take away from it is how we currently asking ourselves and constantly interrogating what kind of legacy are we leaving for the generation after us. And just to constantly interrogate that and make those choices and decisions with that in mind. It has been 14 years since I've seen you. I could not point you out in a crowd of 3. You left me twice. The first when I was 2 and the second when I was 14. It was as though you could not leave me enough. As though my infant brain could not remember the sudden absence of your screaming voice climbing the walls of all my future relationships. As though it was my fault. I've heard that you and I share features like a dinner I've been force-fed for as long as I can remember, but you won't even sit at the table with me. My memories of you include when I cut my foot at 3 years old and got 12 stitches. You said, I wrote my first poem at 6. A personification of a street sign I remembered how to spell. You reacted to it like, I got my heart broken for the first time when I was 14. A girl who could not understand my obsessions, wanting to spend every lunch period together for a week. When she said we couldn't hang out anymore because I was weird, I went home to cry to the day you left. The last words you said to me were, give these keys to your mother. And I said, and I've responded to you like this ever since. Are you proud? I learned something from you. Will you tell my ex-wife that I stayed 5 years too long? I was learning how to stay and not be my father's. Will you tell my friends that I don't know how to tell them how I'm feeling because, dear absent father, missing dad, the silent screaming in the gaping holes of my emotional inabilities. This is an obligatory letter to my biology that I will leave at the roots of a tree I can't even identify. What is the purpose of explaining who I am to you if you don't even recognize the miracle I've always been? I am. It feels like you should know this about me. Dear Dad, is it because I'm too, or too, that you did not want me, but I still exist? I am so painfully permanent. I am such a miracle. Thank you. Cool. Awesome. So, the next poem I'm going to do, I've been in Seattle for about 15 years. And I originally come from the San Fernando Valley in Southern California. But I've been here for 15 years. And even in those 15 years, I've seen such dramatic changes happen to this city to the point where I've gotten pushed out of the city to not be able to live there anymore. And all of the things that, that the displacement, all of the different things, the violence that are happening to communities that have actually been here in the shadow of it being on stolen land to begin with is just so complex and hard to think about. But so this is me trying to make sense of that. So thanks for listening. You know that new store with all the construction that replaced that bakery, restaurant, boutique, coffee shop? Well, it's open, but it's a pet grocery. What is that? I don't know where they got the idea that people around here can afford groceries for their dog. Rocky eats Purina and leftovers. But ever since that new bus, train, trolley car, subway line, bike lane opened, everything has been water dripping from the electricity of the overhead wires. Like, why'd they take Uncle Keith's place and put in that new restaurant, bakery, bar that no one around here can even afford? It's like they're poking holes on our streets to see if we will leak from them. Every time they build, they rip at our seams, never give us a minute to mourn our holy open graves. They put up tombstones we can't afford to look at. You know, Thomas moved. They said his lease ended and the rent for his apartment rose like $300. So he moved 20 miles south or west or north or far away from here. He works part-time at the pet grocery now. Says the commute is worth it. He got a 1-bedroom for the same price I'm paying for a studio with a broken heater my landlord is still waiting for me to pay for. It's like what we used to pay. It's like the only place that remembers us is too far to even remember how to get back here. Painting all their new buildings colors we've been using in our artwork for years and calling it new and calling it right. Making right angles of our cul-de-sac blocks. They call it cleaning up. Like we're the mess. They call us a dead end, but they're not calling this a dead end anymore. The city looks like an erector set of a child that wears a suit now, with a big office on the top floor of a building so high up he has no idea that people still live here. Do you know that people still live here? We've been living here ever since you redlined the rest of the city. We are still living. Even if you didn't expect us to. The other night, we were sitting on Union. A group of like 15 white people in little shorts were running, walking, biking down the street. Moni said it was a club, but they never used to want to be here at that time of night. Moni said that Union was never the street to be on after 6 p.m. and be rich and white. But now they're running on our block when the streetlights are on. They're running on our streets like they run our streets, being seen around here like they didn't used to avoid it. It's been so quiet here lately. The silence is so thick you could use dull blades to break it open. Find the pain in our backs from carrying the relics of what this used to be. Before we were worth saving. Before you tore down the boundary line, started putting up grand opening under new management, open for business, as if we were always constrained, only open for surrender. They find our music to play in their coffee shops as if to remember us fondly. It is clear we are unwanted. It is not clear where we should go. Thank you. Awesome. So I have 2 more for you because a rule was set in place by our last performer, though we're all doing 5, so I'm going to do 5 too. But thank you so much for being here. Oh, and this is my book right here, surprisingly. It's Insubordinate, and it's available on my website, ebobarton.com/shop. It is $20.99 plus tax because I also have to pay taxes, surprisingly. But yeah, so I'm going to read this poem, and then we're going to get into another one, and it's going to be all good. My religious aunt recalls a family tragedy in a car ride. The story spills out of her mouth like a communion wine. We had just come from dinner, so it felt appropriate to drink her every word. Her expensive name brand purse her pulpit. She ends her sermon by saying, "It shows you the power of the hand of God." My family members humbly moved out of their minivan van bench. My uncle nods from this front seat. Even Santo Nino bobbles in approval on the dashboard, the rear view rosary swaying like a desperation prayer. And my universe stone and sage burning queer moody self wants to sigh, "Holy breath." But I realized you can't tell anyone how to worship. My aunt, an unrecognized God herself, speaks as if Jesus is her own son, perpetually surviving and mourning the death of actual Jesus and her actual son. But this fiery hell of a family of ours, how can she not see the God in herself? How is it that she is not the church's focal point? Why do our knees not buckle in prayer as she enters the room, as if we don't call her first before praying to whatever is up there? And maybe it's that we don't want to give the ending away. And maybe this is what the answer has been all along, but it's also maybe why I've never seen myself as holy. While I've ripped my body into pieces and offered it up as a sacrifice to my relationships, while I've told lovers that I'm not even worth praying for, let alone pray to. And I may have never flooded the earth or banished curious fruit pickers from my garden, but I have made an overdrawn bank account pay for wine to heal myself. I've swam in the deepest end, drowned, died, and resurrected, and no one even noticed at work on Monday. And isn't that godlike? I have untangled myself from my stepbrother's grip, ran 1,500 miles north, and still came out with some pretty fly shoes. My God. And there is no book about me, no commandments I list to get into my arms, no cross to carry, no stained glass summaries of the tragedies of my life. And dear God, and by God, I mean you. I mean my Tita Tessie. I mean nightlife dancer. I mean single mother. I mean person at the bus stop. I mean underpaid musician, underappreciated, exploited, aggressive youth. You, in any sense, I mean me. Dear me, look how far you've come in creation. The power of your hand, your breath, is the prayer and the response. Thank you. Cool. Thank you so much for listening. And then there's going to be music again after this, to my understanding. So I appreciate you sticking around for the poetry. This last poem is something that I've been reflecting on, especially as everything happens. And it's about making mistakes. And I think that what we discovered during the pandemic is that all of these like systems and stuff was all imaginary at some point because it all started breaking down. So if we start imagining ourselves what the world can be like after this, then maybe we can make something happen. But along the way, we're going to make some mistakes because we're just human and that's just really how we're built. So just keeping in mind that we're built to make mistakes, and that's terrible, but it happens. But yeah, anyway, shout out to the musician before me because this is exactly what you're talking about in your set. So, I've been in and out of the Pacific Ocean, across this wretchedly beautiful effery of borders we call a country. I've been to love, but never through it. I've been through 2 puberties. It's very hot up here. A library wall filled with unfinished books on heartbreak, about 13 breakdowns and only 2 breakthroughs, and I've driven about 1 million more internet miles, mostly on Zoom, from out of the weather of raining expectations and unpredictions to tell all of you, make an effing mistake. I watched a Facebook video wherein the bass drum of an orchestra hit his note with so much passion, the drum mallet flew from his hands and hit the triangle player square in the face. The song never missed a note, but I imagine in another dimension that woman yelled, F! So loudly, it bounced off the walls of the amphitheater and into the mouths of the pearl necklace wealthy white women, and F, 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 F became the best remix the symphony has ever heard. My mother is not as out of her mind as I make her out to be, probably. But she had to have been, to have created an offspring with the man I'm supposed to call father on purpose, and that makes me a mistake. But look at what this mistake can do. Look how many lives I've lived. Look how many people can love me. Look how I can learn and change and grow and evolve. Look at the moon. I've read somewhere that a former planet shoulder-checked a piece of our planet, and that piece got captured in the orbit. We call her the moon. And I think that she had the opportunity to roam the entire universe, but she fell so in love with our faces that she committed her body to be on night watch for eternity. Tell me you can't find the beauty in mistakes. I've lost a lot of friends, life, sanity, time, making mistakes, but I can only hope that I walk this life differently because of them. Next time, I'll be so much better, I promise. Tomorrow, I will stand in front of a person I've never even felt worthy of looking at. They pay all their bills on time, like it's due on the 3rd, and they pay it by the 3rd. That's wild. And they wake up early to like do yoga or something, and they make their mama proud. And I will say, make a mistake with me. I've lived on this broken piece of rock for 38 years, and I've literally never been right about anything. So why would I be right about you? So come with me. We'll spill our combined traumas on each other's shirts. Let's feel really uncomfortable about what we said out loud. Let's go to the wrong airport on the wrong day and still get on the plane when it's actually time. To err is human, so let's be so human. Our flesh stinks of mess up. It'll be my fault, your bad, and our misstep, and we'll just do better next time. I'm sorry in advance for tripping on you. I'm sorry if my drumstick hits your face, but the beat is different now. And F, it's beautiful. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.